So welcome everyone. Can you please mute yourself, Excel?
Sorry.
I'm hearing static. That's okay. All right, welcome everybody. This is Englandia, the Mage of Ceremonies, aka Business Development for Sovryn, a Bitcoin DeFi project. I'm going to kick off this call, as I always do, with some dope-ass bars. So please keep yourselves muted. Sit back and enjoy the show. Okay. Just give me 1 second. Hopefully you can hear the background music.
Yeah.
Someone got Twitter acting rowdy. Maybe it's the market just dealing with the downswing. Hack with the Sovryn, catch another bounty. Let me say it once and I'm gonna say it loudly. Sats rule everything around me, but we stay sovereign if it's sunny or it's cloudy. Sovereign not sparking a debate about TVL. Such a silly metric, about as far as we could tell. ETH maxis getting toxic just to hear themselves speak brashly. Even so, we gotta treat them well. Giddy up, time to ride the unicorn, even though it's a feat we ain't never do before. Bringing sovereignty to the planet of Ethereans. We'll expand Bittocracy, that's what the theory is. Some may call us awesome or just delirious, but we stay sovereign and we're gonna take it serious. All right, I nailed that one.
Woo! More of that.
Dollar bill, y'all.
More. Bravo.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you for joining us here. Thanks for sharing this mission. The rules are, if you're not speaking, please mute yourself. If you would like to speak, please toggle the mute button back and forth to get our attention. If that doesn't work, feel free to politely jump into the conversation. Now, before we go through the agenda, would anyone here like to introduce themselves and say a quick hello?
I like the idea of a mutant button instead of a mute button. That's pretty cool.
Right? It's always on for me. All right, so let's kick it off with the governance report with Yago.
Hi everyone, exciting to be back. I've just had several very bizarre weeks. I was under rocket bombardment. I've been traveling a lot. I was at the Miami conference, which was a very bizarre place. The whole city of Miami was filled with Bitcoiners, and it was nothing like any Bitcoin conference I've ever been to before. Honestly, it was a lot more like a shitcoin conference than a lot of other conferences I've been to. But one of the cool things was I was just walking around and getting stopped by people who just wanted to say how much they liked what was happening.
Are we still waiting to get started? I just want to check if my headphones are.
Oh, can you please mute yourself, whoever spoke? I'm going to start muting people if I don't see you unmuted.
So what was really cool was meeting a lot of people who just wanted to say how much they loved what was happening with Sovryn, and to see the degree to which awareness around the Sovryn project and Bitcoin for DeFi in general is growing. And then there were the weirdest things about the last few weeks. 10 years ago, I remember sitting on panels and explaining or describing how I thought that, in 10, 15, or 20 years, Bitcoin would become the reserve asset of the world. And even while I was saying those things on a panel, everyone who was doing it with me, I think we all were wondering whether or not we had, by mistake, become flat earthers and had just lost our minds, because it was such a ridiculous thing to say when Bitcoin was trading at, I don't know, $40. But here we are, just 10 years later, and Bitcoin's been adopted by a sovereign nation as legal tender. And I don't love everything about it, and other people on the team, John Light had some really good comments about why maybe it's not such a brilliant idea, but the fact that it's happening is remarkable and strengthens my conviction that we are building a financial layer to the monetary layer of tomorrow. And it also strengthens the sense that we need to build these tools so that the people of El Salvador and the people around the world have access to transparent financial tools. Before I was in Miami, I was going around in the Caribbean, meeting with various communities there. And I think there's a huge amount of opportunity. And I think that there's going to be some projects that will be coming out of that for Sovryn, which I'm hoping at some point there'll be time to talk about. So, in addition to that, there was the budget SIP, which passed. I think it was the first time we ever had a budget SIP with passed with 100% consensus. So that was phenomenal. There's a number of new SIPs that are going to be coming up. And then for me, the thing that's been missing a little bit is the level of engagement that I've managed to have with all of you guys, because I haven't really been able to be online as much as I would like. But that I'm hoping will change. But what's cool is that nobody missed me. You know, things have been great without me, and I think I always knew they would be. But you know, everyone's been sort of extremely jacked up and motivated, and it's been phenomenal to watch. So a lot of things have happened, and I am going to be covering the development report as well. And the reason is, as I'm sure some of you are aware, today Sovryn is going to be listing the SOV token on Uniswap. Up until now, all the bridges have been used for is allowing people to transfer funds in to Sovryn from other chains. And so we've seen BNB move over. We've seen BNB and ETH and stablecoins move over. But today we'll see SOV move in the other direction. And so the dev team are hard at work at that. So what was done on the development side during this period? Well, we've been moving at a cracking pace. The community of developers launched the Binance Bridge, introduced transferable tokens for stablecoins from both chains, DAI, USDT, USDC, and BUSD. By the way, if there are any other key stablecoins that you think are valuable, let us or the Babelfish team know. So the stablecoins are being aggregated into XUSD, which is the first implementation of the Babelfish project. And so this is a core collaboration between the Sovryn protocol and a new protocol, which is Babelfish, and so that's a big deal. We saw well over 6,000 ETH moved over the Sovryn bridge, BNB, and in addition to that, the money on chain, which is the money on chain system, which provides for the world's only currently Bitcoin-backed stablecoin, launched the money on chain token as well on our platform. We saw the introduction of liquidity mining rewards for all of these different pools, and in particular, most recently, the liquidity mining reward for XUSD, which has been 25,000 SOV for its first 5 days. I think one thing which has been really interesting is looking at what our initial expectations for the liquidity mining rewards, which were quite high. We expected that liquidity mining rewards might be about 1,000% yield, which we thought might be too high. But in practice, because there's been a huge influx of funds which have flown into the system, they're still extremely high, somewhere between 200 and 250% APY, and remain extremely attractive. But I think, you know, it goes to show how much interest there has been in moving funds over to the Sovryn system. We've also seen, as a result, an increase in the trading volumes on the system, which are now, for the last few days, have consistently been above $10 million, or somewhere between 250 and 350 BTC a day. So what's coming next? So today, SOV will be transferable over to ETH. The staking SIP, which was approved, will be executed, and this solves the issue that we had with the vesting contracts, some users being unable to withdraw from the vesting contracts. Liquidity mining rewards for lending. So up until now, we've only had liquidity mining rewards for the AMM, but the code is complete for liquidity mining rewards for lending. The system is currently being audited and is already available on testnet, so you guys can go check it out. ETH margin trading will become available, which means it will substantially increase the amount of margin trading that is available on the system. The referral system has been built out. So this is, I think, really, really key. We have built out what might be the world's first fully decentralized on-chain referral system, with the idea that you guys are going to have the opportunity to give your friends the gift of sovereignty, let them know about Sovryn, and then have an additional incentive beyond sort of just your own goodwill, in that you'll be able to earn ongoing fees from the activity of the people that you refer. Now, this is built as a blockchain system, so it's also scalable. So it can be used for referrals between individuals, but can also be used as a way to encourage wallets to integrate so that they can earn the referral fees by effectively referring their users, or getting affiliate marketers to begin using it. And so this is something that I think we're going to be focusing on, with the goal of doing two things at once: distributing even further the ownership of SOV, and at the same time massively increasing the user base that is able to use Sovryn. On the 21st this month, the Origins platform, the Sovryn token launchpad, is going to be functioning. It's going to launch its first project, and that will be Babelfish. And that's super exciting, because that's going to open up an entire new world of projects that are going to be able to launch in Sovryn and become part of the ecosystem. And already there's beginning to be a queue of interested parties who would like to launch on Origins. We're also trying to make sure that over the next sprint, we'll be able to introduce SOV collateral into the lending pool. And that will allow borrowing and lending with SOV, as well as margin trading. This is going to require at least one SIP and maybe two. And so that's going to be something that we'll be working on. I think the first drafts of the SIPs were written by Mr. Light, and are likely to become something, I expect that probably they'll be on the forum soon enough. And then we're going to take the final step towards the full decentralization of the system, where any contracts which are remaining under the ownership of some kind of multi-sig will be transferred directly to the direct control of the Bittocracy protocol. Now, in addition to all of that, there's been major progress on the TBTC peg, which would introduce the new faster peg and allow for much easier ways for users to withdraw funds as well as deposit funds onto Sovryn in the form of Bitcoin. And there's also been a lot of work that's being done on Arbitrum. And I think you guys are aware that these are extremely complex projects, which must be handled very, very delicately to make sure that they're secure. And it's sort of unusual that any project will try to tackle all of these things. But substantial progress has been made on all of them. And today, someone was telling me that they were trying out the roll-up testnet that is currently on limited testnet, and we're amazed at how fast everything was. It was basically instantaneous. Now, there are complications with the Arbitrum roll-up, and so it's still possible that we'll discover some kind of flaw with it that will make it not possible to launch, but that is becoming less and less likely with every single day. And then there's another very big piece of work which has just begun, and that's the work on perpetual swaps. Perpetual swaps, for those of you who don't know, are basically a way to generate a really interesting type of futures market. It is a type of trading that was invented by BitMEX and has become by far the biggest product in the crypto world, and also probably the most important asset. A trading type or asset type that was invented by the crypto space in particular. And so we're looking to bring that in a decentralized way to Sovryn, and then Sovryn would effectively become the only place that you can have decentralized Bitcoin collateralized perpetual swaps, but that would allow you to trade not just Bitcoin, but anything from the price of gold to really any market that you can build a futures around. So you could use your Bitcoin to trade on, the future price of ETH, the dollar, whatever. So a lot of progress has been made. Work is accelerating, and I think a lot of exciting stuff is going to be coming not just in this coming sprint, but also in the upcoming sprints. And with that, I think I'll turn it over to Sue. Sue, you want to talk about?
Yeah, sorry, I just couldn't find the mute button. What were you saying? Sorry.
Creative and design.
Yes. Hi guys. So we've been working hard. We've just pushed out a lot of kind of little changes here and there that should help with your experience. There was about, I don't know, 14, 15 days worth of changes. So you should hopefully not notice anything if we did that, right? Other than that, we've kind of been working on the V2 flows for Babelfish and the bridge. That seems to be going all pretty well. So what this will do is, for all of you that have used the bridge interface, we will basically kind of get rid of that, and it'll be more like a withdrawal function from inside your portfolio. So everything should just be a bit more logical and make a bit more sense. You'll have all your history and see what's pending. Other than that, we've also been working on looking at how the flow for TBTC will work. I'm imagining it will be very similar to the flows that I just mentioned, just to keep consistency. So everything feels the same when you're doing things, instead of like really different kind of flows for each action that you want to take. We've almost finished the Origins launchpad, so we hopefully will be able to test that in a week or so. And that's the same for new lend and borrow pages, because as you might have noticed, we've been updating all of the interfaces like step by step. So lend and borrow is kind of like the last one before we do a big portfolio update. On a more creative side of things, I've been working with a community member to create some really awesome video NFTs. So those will be dropping at some point. I'm hoping you guys love them. Moving on from that, we've been organizing kind of what merch we're going to be creating for you guys, and organizing a loop drop calendar when we'll be dropping each thing. So maybe within a month we'll be starting that up. Like I said, the portfolio page has been underway, and so that should be starting development very shortly. As Diego said, we've been designing a referral system, and that's almost finished. So that will be ready for testing soon as well. And other than that, the other main kind of news is we are almost ready with our new website. So I expect next week you guys will all be able to check out our new website. That's everything from me. Slider, do you want to take over?
Sure thing, thanks. Just a short one today. As mentioned, the Babelfish sale is coming. This week we launched a bounty campaign on Bitcoin Talk to promote the fish token sale. This is obviously the first sale to take place on our newly launched Origins platform, so it's super exciting. We had over 100 people sign up to take part within the space of a few hours, and the program's now fully subscribed, so we're taking that as a positive signal that there's excitement in the market about what's to come. And then, as you're all aware, we've got the Uniswap listing today, and we are busy preparing promotions for that. There's a number of activities we're rolling out over the coming days to support the outreach around the listing. This includes podcast appearances. We'll have some ads running, and we hope to get inclusion on DeFi listings websites. So I'll bring you an update on those in time. Then in other news, we have an AMA with our Korean audience tomorrow on the DeFi Korea Telegram channel. Ingalandia has kindly offered to represent Sovryn at that event as we start to gain visibility to the Asian audience. So that's also exciting. That is all from me for now. Stay sovereign.
Excel, thank you. Thank you, Slider. Excel server, are you there?
Yeah, so for Sovryn, since we launched last week, we've had 512 people sign up to participate, and there's already 44 projects that people have named. We've also basically added another $250,000 in partner bounties to the and grants to the 500K that we initially proposed. So apparently it going live got people's interest. And the first day of talks are edited and will be pushed out as well so that people can look at that. And also there will be John Light's cross-chain Miami talks that are currently being edited and post-produced that will also be going up for you guys to check out.
Okay.
Excel?
Yes?
Just so you know, there seems to be some like static or feedback coming from you.
Okay, I have no idea why that is, but I will.
Let's give him a second to come back.
Sounded like ground.
Maybe we want to take some questions in the meantime until it gets back?
Does anybody have questions? Yep, go ahead.
This is David. I got a quick question. I just want to talk about like the XUSD. I think some people were kind of discussing that. Love the idea. I get it, all of that. But I am wondering, like, isn't the whole premise of XUSD that there is like an insurance fund backing if any of the stable coins go bad? It's like, I feel like we're pulling in all these stable coins into it, yet there's no insurance fund yet set up. So I'm curious, does anyone on the team see that as a potential systemic risk, or is it just kind of like, hey, in the short term, pull as much liquidity as we can in, and then the rest will sort itself out?
I can only give my personal opinion on this, and I think it's it's a valid thing for us to be discussing. My sense is that in the short term, yes, we are taking on a risk. No, it is not really higher than the risk of holding any one of these particular stablecoins. So the centralized stablecoins tend to have more or less the same risk profile. So I'm not sure, like, assuming one of them were to collapse, right? If you were just holding that one, then you'd go to zero. Whereas if you're holding this one, everyone kind of loses 25%. So, mathematically, it's the same risk. But definitely worth discussion. And I think, having a deeper discussion in the forums or in the Discord makes sense.
Got it. And then just small quick follow-up. Long term, are we planning on only having XUSD on there, and then maybe also like something like DOC, or will all stable coins be exclusively represented in XUSD? Like, what's the long-term vision there so far?
Well, basically anyone can create any sort of like AMM pair on Sovryn. It's just really not exposed as a simple UI to do it. So there's nothing anyone can do to stop people from trading whatever pairs they want. The bridge right now is more permission, so it requires actively adding a new token. Right now, those tokens are coming through, but through our interface, through sort of like the UI that is exposed to users, they're all immediately calling a method which sends them to the XUSD aggregator. So in practice, if you were to interact directly with the bridge, you would be able to bring any of those over individually. And so what I suspect will happen at some point is that those individual tokens will begin trading or circulating on Rootstock and in Sovryn. That said, I'm hoping that we can delay that as long as possible, because I think the benefits of having a really deep pool of liquidity around XUSD and having the simplicity for users of XUSD is going to make the future adoption and use of Sovryn far, far better. And I rather think that having all of these different tokens that represent the same asset is limiting to the industry in the long term.
Great, thanks.
Exxon, are you back?
Yes, I am. I've switched machines. Is that better?
Much better. Let's have you
Okay.
finish your updates.
Cool. Yeah, so next week we'll schedule another day of content with additional partners and speakers, and another 5 weeks of the hackathon before it comes together. It's going to be interesting to see how much traction that actually gets with project submissions up until now. It's some interesting stuff there. And that's really all that I have from community. Everything else is happening elsewhere at the moment.
Awesome. Great stuff, Excel Surfer. I think what you're doing is truly, truly amazing and like so grand for the forwarding of the ecosystem. So hats off to you.
I think what's really interesting is this debate that we're seeing happening, around the TVL and the, sort of like the chain arguments that are coming in, that people don't want to recognize side chains and layer 2 solutions on Bitcoin as DeFi. They're looking for the same, security guarantees on a level 2 solution. And watching, both the Bitcoin side and the Ethereum side arguing about that is kind of like really exhibits the whole problem. Everybody just wants to talk and nobody wants to actually build. And hopefully we'll be able to overcome that dialogue with what it is that we're doing with Sovryn and sort of like separate the wheat from the chaff and get back to people that are building and thinking adversarially and creatively and with a spirit of curiosity on both chains, as opposed to this just sort of like arguing going on from very hardened positions. So this contrast is incredibly interesting to me as a member of the space for a long time, like Edon as well. I also agree that like back, I remember the earliest days in our hacker space when people had mined Bitcoin at 30 cents and were putting laptops into secure deposit boxes at banks when it was at $1 and going, should I sell? At $10, I really never anticipated that we would actually be at the state of El Salvador, basically making it a national currency in that 10-year period. I always did think, though, that it would be, what America considers a rogue state, because when I look at the mining numbers, when you look at the fact that 5% of hashing power is in Iran, and Iran has been basically economic sanctions for almost 30 years on and off, is just the proof of the use case of Bitcoin. If a nation state can't be censored, pretty much an individual can. And so my message to everybody in our community and outside in crypto is that we really need to stop, having the fear that what we're doing can be taken away from us, because from what it is, the way that I see the market and the landscape, it can't even be taken away from nation states. So we need to look forward and stop acting from this position of fear, and move forward again into curiosity and building and adversarial thinking.
Yeah, I agree. That's good stuff, man. Can we get the Bittocracy report from Mr. Light?
Yeah, hi folks. So there have been a couple of votes that have happened since the last call. There was a vote on SIP 19, the Exchequer Committee budget proposal, which was approved. And there was also a vote on SIP 20, which was a technical SIP to upgrade the staking contract. And that SIP was also approved. If anybody missed those votes or wants to learn more about those proposals, you can check them out in the SIPs repo or the discussion Sovryn Forum. And speaking of the Sovryn Forum, the Mint Layer team just recently published a draft SIP in the Sovryn Community Forum in the Bittocracy category for community review. So this SIP has not been scheduled for a vote yet. So now is a good time for SOV holders who are staking in Bittocracy and anyone else with interest in the proposal to check it out, review the proposal, give your feedback, and help shape it up before it gets scheduled for a final vote by SOV holders. And that's the Bittocracy report for today.
All right, thank you very much, John Light. So yeah, I can shed a little bit of light on business development. I've been in charge of sorting through the origin sale candidates, not just the sale metrics, but also what kind of value can they add to the Sovryn protocol in the short and long term. Mint Layer was one of those projects that I had the pleasure of meeting with during the Bitcoin Miami conference. That's where I've been the past week. So yeah. I'm looking to meet more with into and I'm working on more partnerships with top Ethereum DeFi projects and shepherding some of our layer 2 efforts so that our devs have the resources and the time they need to sort of implement the rollups from the off-chain labs team. So with regards to top Ethereum DeFi projects, if you know of one that could add a lot of value to the Sovryn protocol without any overlap to what we're already doing, suggestions and intros are certainly welcome. So I think that's it for updates. Does anyone have questions on the topics we mentioned so far, whether it be the Sovrathon or the SIPs, the upcoming origin sale, the tech updates, or the Uniswap listing?
Hey guys, it's Whipper. Got a question for the team. This is sort of was brought up before by Dave. I just had a question if anyone knows from the team if the Babelfish project is 100% decentralized. I just want to get a better understanding about that. And if it's not, what sort of pressure or assurances can we get from them since we're basically holding a token that they have, I guess, authority over? If you can speak a little bit about that, that'd be amazing. And before I let you guys answer, just huge shout out to the team. The speed in which you guys are rolling everything out and all the hard work that you guys are doing is like, it's insane. It's super cool and super awesome. So big shout out.
Thanks so much, Whipper. Great question. So the answer is it's not fully decentralized yet. Their team is currently working so they had a governance system. which is based on a prediction market, which I thought was pretty cool, but they thought had too much risk. And so they basically shelved that and are in the process of re-implementing the Bittocracy system. So that they will have a governance system which matches the Bittocracy system, which they feel is like more hardened and has been through some battle testing and seems to be working really well. So as a result, right now the XUSD is actually controlled by Sovryn, and as part of the SIP, what will happen is, so we had the SIP with to allow them to launch off of Origins. Effectively, the way that is constructed is that Sovryn is going to be launching Babelfish, and then will hand over control to the their version of the Bittocracy. And actually, while we're on the call too, I forgot to do this, but I wanted to ask you whether or not we could potentially adjust our current interface to allow for multiple projects to basically run their own Bittocracies through our interface, because Mintlayer have asked for the same thing.
That would be amazing, I think. And like, yeah, that will align with some of the stuff I think I might have been talking with John about, because we need to update how the users are actually interacting with it so that they get a better experience, I think. Light's got a lot of good ideas.
Whipper, I hope that answered your question.
It did, but I'm wondering, and again, I'm coming from a place that I'm a member who's quite concerned about the overall safety, and I'm sure it's safe in every way. I just want to know, like, what sort of assurances we can get from them, since we're dealing with a different project that's sort of intertwined with us. What sort of assurances or what sort of things can we do as a community so that we know that their roadmap for decentralization from their point is happening and happening quickly? I guess.
Yeah, that's a good follow-up question. So I think I don't know if we'll need a SIP for this, but I don't think XUSD or anything really should be handed over to their governance, to their protocol governance until it's ready. And I think also Dark Knight is on the call with us. Dark Knight, if you're here, would you concur? He doesn't seem to be responding. But yeah, I mean, I think for everyone's sake, it's better that we have a sense that their system is robust before their system would take over governance. Now, there's a secondary part of that is like, do we trust their community? And I think the good thing about it is that there's a large amount of overlap of the communities. And also a good amount of SOV is actually going to be airdropped of fish tokens is going to be airdropped to SOV stakers on the basis of how long they're staking for. So I think there should be a good alignment there as well.
Do people who have vested tokens, they don't necessarily earn fees in the Bittocracy, but they do have voting power. And so when the airdrop happens, is that going to just those people who have like if your tokens aren't yet vested, are you still getting the share of the fish tokens? I guess is what I'm saying. Because like I know those people only have governance power.
No, right now, no. So I think the decision that was made that only people who have staked tokens that were previously liquid. So for example, founders who have tokens which are under some kind of vesting will not receive fish tokens.
Okay.
But please, just a quick question regarding this. Is it people who have staked in the past and now maybe their stake is over, or is it people who are going to be staking during the sale?
So I haven't been as engaged with this part of it, but to my understanding, it's on the basis of the amount of stake So the stake weight that you have at the time of the airdrop.
My understanding is that a snapshot is taken right prior to the sale going live, and it's that snapshot that will be used to then airdrop at the end. So you need to have been staking, and the stake weighting value will be determined at the time that the snapshot is taken.
Okay, thanks.
Can I raise something? So I'll do this quickly. But basically, one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot recently has been the issue of the protocol is going to generate increasing fees over time, but sort of like the cost of staking doesn't change, right? So like the lack of liquidity that you have when you're starting to stake doesn't change. And so there's sort of like a mismatch there. So one of the things that I'm planning to write up, and I'm hoping I can write it up in the very near future, is I think that what we could potentially do is create a token, which right now in my mind I'm calling the RYN token, sort of as the partner to the SOV token, which would bring forward revenue from the future, and would be minted to SOV stakers. So the people who are SOV stakers now, and in my mind, I think also sort of who were SOV stakers in the past, would basically receive those tokens and then have a way to A, have something which is immediately liquid, and B, sort of smooth out the basically earn out fees that haven't been generated yet, even though they're staking now. And I think that that could be a really, to my mind, that could be a solution to the issue with the relatively low earning of the SOV stakers now, and would also compensate people who had been staking in the past. So I'm planning to write that out, but I'm kind of interested in people's thoughts.
I'm confused. What value does the RY token have? I mean, I get that it's like a reward for stakers.
Well,
but like,
imagine it would earn 10% of the protocol earnings for the next 10 years or something, right? Like, I mean, that's not going to be the maths, but the basic idea is that if you have an RYU token, at the end of a certain period, you can cash it in for all of for a percentage of all of the fees that were earned by the protocol during that time. And so it has immediate value because people could basically be trading it. It's kind of like a futures on the earnings of the protocol, but you're earning it now, and if you want, you could sell it, you could keep it, you could do whatever you want with it.
Yeah,
I mean, it
I'm
sounds
very
interesting,
skeptical
but
about the creation of another token.
I think more information.
I'd rather see updates to how the current token is used based on SIPs and contract changes. I have some ideas about that, but I'm skeptical of introducing another token into the system with any properties.
Did someone else have a comment?
So
my name is Joby.
Go ahead.
Already?
Yeah, I'm the CEO of the Dynamite. I just want to congratulate you on the great developments being done at Sovryn, and also for listing in Uniswap, which is going to happen soon. And we are really grateful to Sovryn because Sovryn's success actually contributed a lot in our NFT app success as well. So thank you guys for that.
I had a comment on Yago's token idea. So I understand people's hesitancy to list new tokens, but the entire idea is you can't really create functionality for the Sovryn token if it has to do with the Sovryn token itself. So if you want to augment how the token vests or how you can earn fees, you're going to have to make a new token. It's just inevitable. Otherwise, there's no way to create value to trade prior to that discounted value being realized in the future. So maybe it's not something to do right away now and see how the fees are developing over time. Maybe they'll just grow as user engagement grows. But at some point, if you don't see that, maybe you do want to do that.
Well, I think that there's an alternative way to do that. actually, and that would be to make staked tokens or vested tokens transferable, because you can't, which would also create a futures market. So you know that they're unlocking at a future date, and you purchase them at a discount or at a premium. And that would be possible with a SIP and a contract change to do it that way to create a futures market. And that would be much more preferable to me with the existing token than with another token muddying up, the value of the primary token.
Interesting. Okay, well, yeah, again, that's another discussion to be had then, but I would say you should talk to Iago about that then, because that sounds interesting too.
Oh, we have had these conversations. Iago and I, did argue about these things with different points of opinion. There is a dialogue internally about these things, and so this is my position publicly and his position publicly, and so we're looking for sentiment analysis, obviously, sentiment inside the community about these ideas by talking about them as well.
I think that
I think that if you make the SOV token transferable before it's reached its unstaking period, that kind of defeats the purpose of the staking and early unstaking penalty. So I don't think that's a good substitute for what.
Why should there
Iago is
be
trying
an
to
early
do.
unstaking penalty? Why shouldn't they be? What's the argument to not make them transferable, other than you don't want to have the danger of a futures market on a young token?
You want stakers to be long-term aligned, and if they're able to get immediate liquidity, then they have no long-term.
They're not getting liquidity. They're getting staked tokens. They're getting the token. That's the stake remains.
All right, maybe let's not have this debate here. I think the best place to have this debate is in the forum, and I apologize always for bringing it up. Because I see that it's starting to get heated.
I have an unrelated question.
Shoot.
Hi, it's Usman. While we know that there's discrepancies in the definition of the TVL, something that we touched upon earlier as well, I wanted to check and see whether we have any communication plans to sort of share that information on the crypto Twitter, as long as also on top of that, any of that information that can be shared in any of the web forums. The idea is that, or the question, my concern really is that the narrative that you see on the crypto Twitter right now is that we changed information prior to reporting numbers. Now we know that the third-party site that went ahead and updated the numbers based on the TVL it's nothing that we can control because it's part of a feed, but we want to understand that if we have any communication plans out there to tackle that in the future, or maybe arm Pompliano with some information related to the TVL. Just curious.
My feeling is that fudders are going to FUD. It was always going to be the case that if we start being successful, that as Maxi would be attacking us, and they wouldn't attack us. I don't really think you can fight FUD with that in that simple way. You just have to, ignore it most of the time. Also, I will freely admit that I kind of brought this because I was being cheeky on Twitter, right? So DeFi Llama posted that we had a TVL of 1.9 billion, which is true. But it also is true that it includes the staked SOV. And so, I posted it and said, look how well we're doing. We're bigger than Uniswap V3, right? It was a very cheeky post. And so it was a cheeky post which caused a lot of Ethereum maxis to get their feathers ruffled. I actually think in practice it worked out really well. We saw the number of new users to our system over a 24-hour period double. We saw more than 7,000 new followers on our Twitter, like in a much faster rate than we've ever seen before. And, while I don't think being cheeky should be our number one strategy, in this particular case, it worked out kind of well. So I think my approach, and this is my personal opinion, but my approach, I think, is that we need to spend the time to communicate what we're doing, make sure that what we're doing is secure and safe, and do it on the basis of educating people, like actively going out and educating people, and much less on trying to respond to every piece of FUD, because the FUD, I think, is only going to get worse. I mean, look at what's happening with Bitcoin, right? Like Elon Musk is FUDding Bitcoin because it upsets his ego that there's something which is getting more attention than he is, right? The bigger you get, the more FUD you're going to get. And I think the way you deal with that is sticking to your principles.
I mean, the thing is, Iago, is that the way that you guys, whoever is doing this TVL calculation is doing it is highly idiosyncratic. Like, basically no other project measures TVL, including, tokens locked in governance. Like Maker, we don't measure Maker's TVL with like the amount of MKR that's in the Maker voting contract. We don't count the number of Curve tokens that are in the Curve staking governance system in Curve's TVL. It's just highly unusual, and basically no other project on DeFi Pulse is measured that way, and that's why you're getting the pushback that you are.
But yet DeFi Pulse's own definition says that it includes staked value. There's differing opinions on that from differing camps. People have pointed out that there's a discrepancy and there is no standard. There's no white paper on what that standard should be. It's different across all portals, and there are different camps that view it differently. I disagree with that, John.
So I don't know that it really matters what they do. I think it matters what we do. And I think if what we're doing is confusing to people, we may want to stop doing it. I think it's important that we show everything that is in the protocol, including the SOV tokens that are staked, because they are in the protocol, but we can break it out. I actually think that TVL is most accurately represented in the way that we represent it, and that what other people are calling TVL is actually more like AUM. I think we can show things in a way which is going to be as clear as possible to everyone.
May I add to that, Iago? So actually, on the data science side, Betsy Braddock has been working really for a number of weeks, if not a month and a half, on us separating out not only the different token groups and how long they're staking for, but when it is that each one of the stakes and when all of the vests are going to be coming out. And this came out of a conversation that we had 2 months ago, wanting to be able to have the data to give to people to be able to see what the inflation rate is actually going to be and what sort of risks do they want to take on how long it is that they stake. So we're working on the data science side to give people all of the granular numbers of all of the contracts and all of the different periods of the release schedules of the allotments, and then hopefully in real time also to have what's being staked and unstaked, in a cached value that's as up to date and immediate as it can possibly be, available on the DApp. And this beginning of that are the charts that you see that Johnny Pickles has built that are on the wiki. All of those things came out of this initial question: how long are people vesting for, and how long are they staking for in each of those token groups, and when will they unlock? So we're working very hard to get this granular data out there, and I find that this recent blow up over that data comes from the fact that we just don't actually have that in an API and displayable to people yet. And my largest frustration in being the person that you guys see running the Twitter account who gets salty here and there about people is that there's all of these allegations being made about our data. And the frustration where the language changed in those tweets is with very, very particular people who refuse to look at the on-chain data that is there and to be verified themselves. There's no manipulation of data here, and everything is verifiable. The links were provided to the GitHub repos. The links were provided to the actual pull requests, which show that they were happening. All of the commits were happening over the last 10-day period to include this type of data. And the people just do not want to look at that and just look to their favorite Twitter pundit who's alleging some kind of, point of view that they have for whatever reason. So this team, and a little bit of the frustration that you see from my part publicly, is that we're working towards these things and people just do not want to look at that. They literally do not want to look at the facts. They only want to follow their narrative. I don't think that that this should be the way it is that we're communicating. But at a certain point, you do have to stand up for what it is that you believe in and that you know to be correct and true. And you also have to point out to certain users that there are people out there who have followings who refuse to actually do their own research. And those include very, very, well-known accounts like Anti-Pro-Synth and Hasu. They refuse to actually look at the data themselves and just continue tweeting. And I just find that to be abhorrent.
So I'm actually the one who was asking you on Twitter about this. And for me, it's just you always have to kill them with kindness in a certain way. The moment you start saying
You're not wrong about
SPFU, it's just really unprofessional looking. And I'm trying to imagine being a user who's not already on the platform, and I see that. There's no way I'm going to react positively to that. I'm just going to, at best, I'm going to be like, both these people sound crazy, and I'm just going to have nothing to do with either of these projects. And
what I want to communicate is that I'm not uncognizant of that fact, but I was the 600th user of Twitter when it was in beta. And I've been there from the beginning in crypto, and I know most of these people, and I know what their narratives are, and I know the kind of junk that they put out. I've survived. Wait, just let me give you my point of view, because it's important that everybody here hears it, and these issues have been raised inside of the team as well. At some point, the numbers are 7,000 new Twitter followers, a doubling and maybe even a tripling of the new wallets that signed up, and a CoinDesk article that is talking about the fact that TVL is a metric that needs to be looked at. And there's a certain sort of like calculation about how much it is that we're in the dialogue. And I understand that it can be offensive to people. But I will modulate that moving forward. I've been requested by team members to do that. But there is a certain amount of roughness and controversy on Twitter inside of crypto that you have to stand up for.
I think the important distinction, though, is that you can be controversial, you can be upsetting, but you shouldn't be aggressive. I think,
I accept that. Yeah. I want to say that publicly, that I accept that. And we're going to modulate that moving forward. I just wanted it to be clear to everybody that's participating in the call how it is that I see these things. They are decisions that I do rationally make as a risk calculation for communication. And the feedback has come in, and I'm listening to it.
Thank you very much. That was a very healthy conversation.
Yes, thank you.
Cool. I would like to close this out. You guys can certainly hang after the call, but I would like to adjourn the community call as the hour is up. So I want to thank everyone for joining in on this. Your support makes all the hard work worthwhile. Who we are is a collective carving out a trail for financial freedom, dismantling what people know and understand about money. Help us spread the word and create more sovereign individuals. Stay sovereign.
Hey, before you guys leave, I just want to say one quick thing. So today, probably in about, I don't know, depending on, if everything's working properly, about half an hour, we expect to have ESOV. So